The afternoon light fell across Meridian Park with surgical precision, turning every white stone pathway into strips of cold brilliance. Derek Vale sat motionless on a metal bench, his worn jacket a smudge of gray against the immaculate landscape. Around him, families drifted past in expensive fabrics, their laughter soft and controlled, their lives apparently untouched by anything as crude as failure. His hands rested on his knees, fingers occasionally twitching as if reaching for something that was no longer there. The termination message still burned in his memory, replaying with cruel clarity. 15 seconds to end a year of work. Staff reduction effective immediately. Access codes canceled. He had stood outside the building for 20 minutes afterward, badge blinking red, before accepting that no one would come explain or apologize. The lunch container beside him held the remains of synthetic noodles from a vending unit, the broth long since cold. He had forced himself to eat half of it before his stomach rebelled. Everything tasted like ash anyway. His throat felt tight, his chest heavy with something he refused to name. He had survived combat zones, patched soldiers while shells fell around him, carried dying men through blood and dust. He would not break down on a park bench in front of strangers. Footsteps approached, too light to be an adult. Derek lowered his hands and found himself looking at a small alien girl. She stood perhaps 3 feet tall, her skin a soft violet that seemed to glow from within, especially along her cheeks and temples. Long blue hair cascaded down her back, held with delicate silver clasps. Her layered cloak shifted between shades of teal and purple, clearly expensive, with embroidered patterns along the edges. She studied him with eyes far too knowing for a child. "You are sad," she said. Her voice carried no uncertainty, just simple observation. Derek straightened his spine, automatically, military posture kicking in. "I am fine," he replied, keeping his tone neutral. "No," she said, tilting her head slightly. "You breathe the way my mother does when she remembers my father. Heavy, like your chest has stones in it." The accuracy of her words startled him. He swallowed hard, fighting the pressure building behind his eyes. "What is your name?" "Fessin," she answered. "We are feeding the fish today. They swim in circles when they are happy." She gestured toward the artificial canal behind him, where bioluminescent creatures drifted beneath the surface. A taller figure approached from the pathway. The woman moved with effortless grace, her body wrapped in fabric that shimmered between blue and silver with each step. A fitted bodice accentuated her elegant form, while a long skirt with a high slit revealed glimpses of violet skin. A translucent outer robe draped from her shoulders, catching the light. Her face held the same natural luminescence as her daughter, her features refined and striking. She lowered herself smoothly to one knee beside Fessin, bringing her eyes level with Derek. "I am Verena," she said. Her voice carried quiet authority, the kind that came from someone accustomed to being heard. "My daughter speaks without filter, but she is rarely wrong about people." "Your daughter is very perceptive," Derek said, managing to keep his voice steady. "But I do not need help." Verena studied his face with unsettling directness, taking in the tension in his jaw, the shadows under his eyes, the careful way he held himself together. "I did not offer help," she replied. "I offer a meal and conversation. Nothing more complicated than that." "I lost my job today," Derek said bluntly. "I have no credits to repay hospitality. I'm not someone you want in your home." Verena stood in one fluid motion. "You assume I want payment." "I do not." Fessin sees suffering and wishes to ease it. "I teach her that compassion is not a transaction." Fessin reached out and took his hand, her small fingers surprisingly warm. "Please come," she said. "My mother makes food that tastes like comfort. You look like you need comfort." Something in Derek cracked at those words. The simple kindness, offered without judgment or expectation, slipped past his defenses. He felt exhausted suddenly, tired of carrying everything alone, tired of pretending he was fine when he felt like he was drowning. He stood slowly, his joints stiff from sitting too long. Verena nodded once and turned toward the park exit. Fessin kept hold of his hand, her grip gentle but firm. A sleek transport waited beyond the gates, its gray surface marked with subtle silver lines. The doors whispered open, revealing an interior bathed in warm amber light. Soft leather seats lined the cabin, with deep blue cushions that looked impossibly comfortable. Derek hesitated at the threshold. His boots were scuffed, his jacket faded. Everything about him felt wrong in this space. "It is only a vehicle," Verena said quietly. "Not a judgment." He stepped inside. The seat accepted his weight like an embrace, softer than anything he had touched in months. Thessin climbed in beside him, swinging her legs and humming a melody he did not recognize. Verena sat across from them, her posture relaxed but attentive. "Where do you live?" she asked as the transport lifted smoothly into motion. "Lower Rings," Derek answered. "Small quarters. Just me." "And before the security work?" "Military," he said. "Combat médic. For years on the frontier." Verena nodded slowly. "That explains the way you sit. Always watching. Always ready." Derek said nothing, but he felt exposed in a way that was both uncomfortable and strangely relieving. She saw him, truly saw him, and did not look away. The transport climbed through the district levels, passing buildings that gleamed with wealth. Floating gardens drifted between platforms. Glass-fronted homes revealed elegant interiors. Nothing resembled the cramped metal corridors where Derek lived, where pipes dripped and the air tasted like recycled filters. When they arrived, Verena led them into a suspended villa attached to a residential platform. The entrance opened into a space filled with natural light. Pale floors stretched beneath woven rugs. Curtains moved gently in the climate-controlled air. The scent of spices and roasted meat drifted from the kitchen area. "Sit," Verena said, gesturing to a low table surrounded by cushioned seats. "You need proper food." Derek started to protest, but Thessin pulled him toward the table. He sat awkwardly, aware of how out of place he looked. Verena moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, removing covered dishes from warming units. She placed plates on the table, each filled with food that made his stomach clench with sudden hunger. Roasted fish with crisp golden skin. Grains mixed with herbs and small vegetables. Bread still warm from the oven. She poured dark liquid into a small cup and set it beside his plate. "Drink slowly," she said. "Ferland's seed coffee. Strong." Derek took the first bite and nearly closed his eyes at the taste. Seasoned perfectly, tender and rich. He had eaten nothing but synthesized meals for weeks, bland nutrition without pleasure. This was real food, prepared with care. He forced himself to eat slowly despite the hunger screaming inside him. Verena watched him, her expression unreadable. "When did you last eat something prepared with attention?" she asked. "Days," he admitted quietly. "Maybe longer." Thessin leaned against the table, picking at her own food. "He eats like someone who forgot food could be good," she observed. Verena smiled slightly at her daughter, then turned back to Derek. "You will eat here as often as you wish. No expectations. No debts." "Why?" he asked, meeting her eyes. "Why help someone you do not know?" "Because I understand what it feels like to lose everything," she replied simply. "And because Thessin is right about you. You are carrying weight that will break you if you carry it alone." After the meal, Derek stood automatically and began gathering plates. Verena did not stop him. She watched as he washed each dish with careful precision, his movements efficient and practiced. "You worked in field kitchens," she said. "When needed," he answered. "Everyone does everything on the frontier." Thessin appeared at his side, yawning widely. She leaned against his arm, her head resting lightly on his sleeve. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked. Derek looked at Verena. She stood a few feet away, her expression open, waiting for his answer without pressure. "Yes," he said, "if you want me here." "We do," Thessin murmured, already half asleep. When Derek left the villa an hour later, the city outside felt different. Still polished and distant from his world, but no longer entirely hostile. He walked through the illuminated streets with his hands in his pockets, feeling something he had not felt in a very long time. A reason to wake up tomorrow. A place where he was wanted. The beginning of something that might save him from drowning in his own emptiness. The lower ring corridors hummed with mechanical noise when Derek stepped out of his quarters the next morning. The metal walkways vibrated beneath his boots as transport rails thundered overhead. Vendors were already setting up their stalls, steam rising from reheated protein packs and synthetic grain bowls. The air smelled like oil and recycled water. Derek walked past them without stopping. He had barely slept, his mind replaying the previous evening in Verina's home. The warmth of it, the taste of real food, the gentle weight of Thessin leaning against him. Part of him wondered if he had imagined it all, if desperation had conjured some fantasy to keep him from falling apart completely. He reached the transit lift and stepped inside before doubt could stop him. The ascent took 3 minutes, rising through layers of the colony until the doors opened onto the upper district. The change was immediate. Cleaner air, quieter streets, the faint scent of imported flowers instead of machine grease. Derek made his way toward Meridian Park, unsure if they would even be there. Maybe yesterday had been a single act of kindness, not an invitation to return. Maybe he had misunderstood everything. Then he saw them. Thessin stood near the same bench, her cloak pinned properly today, so it hung evenly from her small shoulders. When she spotted him, her face lit up with genuine delight. She ran forward, her blue hair streaming behind her like water. "You came back," she said, slightly breathless. "Mother said you might be too tired. I said you would come anyway." Derek crouched down to her level. "I told you I would," he said simply. Thessin grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the bench. Verina approached from the shade of a nearby tree. She wore a simpler outfit today, a fitted gray dress that left her shoulders bare, with a soft wrap tied loosely around her arms. Her hair was braided with silver threads woven through it, catching the morning light. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying that same calm authority. "I was not certain if today would be too soon. I thought about it all night," Derek admitted. "Decided that leaving things unfinished would be worse than showing up where I might not be wanted." Verina's expression softened slightly. "Then we begin simply." She opened a bag she carried and removed a small container, translucent and still warm. "I realized you left yesterday without taking anything with you, so I prepared something this morning." Derek looked at the container, conflict warring inside him. His pride demanded he refuse. His hunger and loneliness begged him to accept. "You did not have to do this," he said. "I know," Verina replied. "I wanted to." She handed it to him. The container felt warm in his hands, the scent of spiced meat and herbs escaping through a small vent. His throat tightened. "Thank you," he managed. They walked together through the park, Thessin between them, occasionally skipping ahead before circling back. Derek found himself scanning their surroundings automatically, noting exits, assessing potential threats, cataloging everything within view. "You never stop, do you?" Verina asked quietly. "Stop what?" "Watching. Evaluating. You move through the world like it might attack at any moment." "Old habits," Derek said. "Thought they would fade after I left the military. They never did." "Does it exhaust you?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "Mostly it just reminds me of things I would rather forget." Verina walked closer, her arm brushing his briefly. The contact was intentional, grounding. They reached a quiet terrace overlooking the canal. Thessin leaned against the railing, pointing at the bioluminescent fish below. "Look how fast they move today," she said. "Yesterday, they were slow. Today they're dancing." Derek joined her at the railing, letting his hands rest on the cool stone. The fish moved in flowing patterns, their light pulsing gently. The sight calmed something inside him. Verina stood at his other side. "You said you were a medic," she said. "What made you leave?" His fingers tapped lightly on the railing. "I got tired of losing people. Thought civilian work would be easier." "Was it?" "Different kind of hard," he said. "Less blood, more disappointment." Verina was quiet for a moment. "Thessin's father served," she said. "Not in your division, but he carried the same tension you do, the same way of always being ready." Derek turned slightly. "He's not here anymore?" "No," Verina answered. "He died when Thessin was 3. Equipment failure during a supply run." Thessin continued watching the fish, seemingly unaware of the conversation. Derek looked at Verina, seeing something new in her face. grief worn smooth by time, but still present. I am sorry, he said. You could not have known, she replied. And we manage well. Her voice held no self-pity, just acceptance. Fessin spun around suddenly. Can we eat now? I am very hungry. Verena nodded toward the container in Derek's hands. Open it. He sat on a low bench and removed the lid. Steam rose immediately, carrying the scent of perfectly cooked food. Inside were slices of grilled meat with crisp edges, roasted root vegetables seasoned with herbs, and flatbread folded around layered greens. His mouth watered. Fessin sat close, watching his face as he took the first bite. It is good, he said after swallowing. Very good. Mother cooks better than anyone in the district, Fessin declared proudly. Verena sat beside him, close enough that he felt warmth radiating from her skin. You needed something better than vending unit meals, she said. I needed a lot of things, Derek replied quietly. Did not expect to find any of them here. Verena held his gaze for a long moment. Something passed between them, unspoken but tangible. Understanding. Recognition. The beginning of something neither had anticipated. When he finished eating, Fessin pulled him to his feet. Walk with us more, she insisted. They moved through the park, passing other families and couples who glanced at them with polite curiosity. An alien woman, an alien child, a human man who clearly did not belong in this district. Verena ignored the looks completely. Derek kept his spine straight, refusing to appear ashamed. They reached a pathway lined with tall trees whose leaves shimmered with faint bioluminescence. Verena slowed her pace. Tell me something, she said. When they dismissed you yesterday, did you have anyone to call? No, Darikan Serdanistli. No family nearby. The people I served with scattered across the colonies. We lost touch. Verena stopped walking. Fessin took a few steps ahead, then paused and waited. Verena looked directly at Derek. Then starting today, you have us. The words hit him harder than he expected. Something shifted inside his chest, a weight that had pressed down for so long it felt like part of him. He realized his vision had blurred slightly. He blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. Why? He asked, his voice rougher than intended. Why do this for someone you barely know? Because I see you, Verena said simply. I see someone who served and suffered and lost himself along the way. I see someone who needs to remember that he still has value. And because my daughter chose you, and her instincts about people are better than mine. Fessin returned to them and took both their hands, creating a small circle. We should go home now, she said. Derek can help me with my project. What project? Derek asked, grateful for the shift in focus. I am building a model of the colony, Fessin explained, but I cannot get the lower rings correct. You live there. You can help me make it real. They returned to the villa together. Inside, Fessin led Derek to a low table covered with building materials, small blocks of shaped polymer, connecting pieces, tiny figures. She had constructed an impressive replica of the upper districts, complete with parks and residential platforms. Derek knelt beside the table and studied her work. This is very good, he said, but you are right about the lower rings. They do not look like this at all. Show me, Fessin demanded, handing him pieces. For the next 2 hours, Derek worked with her, reshaping her model to reflect the reality of lower ring life. Narrower corridors, stacked housing units, communal spaces that served multiple purposes. Verena watched them from across the room, occasionally bringing water or small snacks. As the afternoon faded into evening, Fessin yawned repeatedly. Verena touched her daughter's shoulder gently. Time for rest, she said. Fessin hugged Derek tightly before heading to her room. You will come again tomorrow? She asked. If you want me to, he replied. Always, she said simply, then disappeared down the hallway. Derek stood slowly, his knees stiff from kneeling. He should leave. He had already taken too much of their time. But Verena gestured to the seating area near the large windows overlooking the city. Stay a while longer, she said. Please. He sat, and she poured 2 glasses of pale wine from a crystal decanter. She handed one to him and sat close, closer than necessary. They drank in silence for a moment, watching the city lights activate as darkness fell. You're good with her, Verena said finally. She is not open to anyone this way since her father died. She is easy to talk to, Derek replied. She does not judge. Neither do I, Verena said, turning to face him fully. I want you to know that. Whatever you have done, whatever you have failed at, it does not define your worth to me. Derek felt something crack open inside him. I do not know how to do this, he admitted. I do not know how to accept help without feeling like I owe something. Then learn, Verena said gently. Start by accepting that you deserve kindness, simply because you exist. She reached out and placed her hand over his. Her skin was warm, her touch firm and grounding. Derek looked down at their hands, then up at her face. In the soft light, she was breathtaking, but it was more than physical beauty. It was the strength in her eyes, the gentleness in her expression, the way she saw through his walls without tearing them down. I'm not good at this either, Verena confessed. I've been alone a long time, focused on Sin, on work, on keeping everything stable. I forgot what it feels like to want someone else in my life. And now? Derek asked quietly. Now I remember, she said, and it frightens me as much as it feels right. They sat together as the city darkened completely, neither pulling away, both allowing the moment to stretch and settle. When Derek finally stood to leave, Verena walked him to the door. She placed her hand briefly on his chest, over his heart. Come back tomorrow, she said. Not for Sin. For me. Derek nodded, unable to speak past the emotion lodged in his throat. He walked out into the night, feeling lighter than he had in years, carrying the warmth of her touch like a promise. 3 weeks passed like water flowing over stone, slowly reshaping everything it touched. Derek fell into a rhythm he had not known he needed. Each morning he rose early, cleaned his small quarters in the lower rings, and took the transit lift to the upper district. Each morning, Verena and Sin waited for him. Some days they walked through different parts of the colony, Sin asking endless questions about the lower rings, about military life, about anything that caught her curiosity. Other days, they stayed in the villa, and Derek found himself doing small repairs, fixing a loose panel here, adjusting a climate control unit there. Verena never asked him to do these things, but she never stopped him either. She understood that he needed to be useful, that purpose came through action. Today, Derek sat on the villa floor with Sin, helping her paint small figures for her colony model. She concentrated fiercely, her tongue poking slightly from the corner of her mouth as she added details to a tiny vendor stall. Does it look right? She asked, holding it up for inspection. Perfect, Derek said. You even got the steam vents correct. Verena emerged from her study, dressed for a council meeting in formal attire. A fitted jacket in deep blue with silver accents, a long skirt that moved like liquid. Her hair was arranged in an intricate style, woven with metallic threads. She looked every bit the district counselor she was. I will be gone for 3 hours, she said. The budget committee never finishes on time. We will be fine, Derek assured her. Verena hesitated, then crossed the room and kissed Sin's forehead. She paused beside Derek, her hand resting briefly on his shoulder. The touch lingered a moment longer than necessary. Be good, she said, though her eyes held warmth rather than concern. After she left, Sin continued painting in focused silence. Derek watched her work, marveling at how natural this had become. A month ago, he had been alone, purposeless, drowning in his own emptiness. Now he spent his days with an alien child and her mother, and it felt more like home than anywhere he had lived. Derek? Sin said, without looking up from her painting. Yes? Are you going to stay with us forever? The question caught him off guard. He set down the figure he was holding. I do not know about forever, he said carefully, but I am not planning to leave. Good, she said simply. Mother is happier when you are here. She smiles more. She does not work as late. Does that bother you? He asked. Me being here? No, Sin replied, finally looking up at him. I like you. You listen when I talk. You do not treat me like I am small and stupid. And you make Mother laugh, which she did not do much before. Derek felt warmth spread through his chest. You are very observant for someone your age. Mother says I see things other people miss, Sin said. She says it is a gift. Sometimes it feels like responsibility. Derek understood that completely. When the painting session ended, they cleaned up together, and Thessin curled up on the sofa with a book about ancient Earth animals. She fell asleep within minutes, the book still open on her chest. Derek covered her with a soft blanket and moved to the windows. The city stretched out below, layers of life stacked and organized. Somewhere down in those lower rings was his old apartment, his old life, his old loneliness. It felt like a lifetime ago. The door opened quietly and Verena entered, looking tired but composed. She removed her formal jacket and draped it over a chair, then noticed Thessin sleeping. Her expression softened immediately. "She waited for you as long as she could," Derek said quietly. "She wanted to show you the figures she painted." "I will see them in the morning," Verena replied. She poured herself water from a pitcher and drank deeply. These meetings drain more energy than any physical labor. "Sit," Derek suggested. "You look exhausted." Verena settled onto the sofa opposite him, removing the ornate clips from her hair and letting it fall loose around her shoulders. She closed her eyes briefly, releasing tension from her neck and shoulders. "Tell me something," she said, eyes still closed. "Are you happy here?" The question was direct, typical of her. Derek considered it seriously. "Yes," he answered, "more than I have been in years." Verena opened her eyes and looked at him. "I need to tell you something." "All right," he said, feeling his pulse quicken slightly. She leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees. "When Thessin first brought you home, I thought it would be temporary. An act of kindness, a few meals, perhaps some company for a short while. I did not expect this." She gestured between them. "I did not expect to want you here every day. I did not expect to think about you when you were gone." Derek moved to sit beside her, close enough that their knees touched. "I did not expect any of this either," he said. "I expected to drift until I disappeared completely. Instead, I found something I did not know I needed." "What did you find?" Verena asked softly. "Purpose," he said. "Connection. A reason to keep going. You and Thessin gave me that." Verena reached out and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. Her skin was warm, her grip strong. "I want you to understand something," she said. "This is not pity. This is not charity. I want you here because you matter to me. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth keeping." Derek felt his throat tighten. "I am broken," he said quietly. "I carry too much damage." "We are all broken in some way," Verena replied. "The question is whether we heal alone or together." She moved closer, closing the distance between them. Her free hand came up to touch his face, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Derek leaned into the touch, his eyes closing briefly. When he opened them, Verena was watching him with an intensity that made his heart race. "I have not let anyone close since my husband died," she confessed. "I told myself it was for Thessin, that she needed stability more than I needed companionship. But the truth is I was afraid. Afraid of losing someone again. Afraid of being vulnerable. And now?" Derek asked. "Now I think being afraid is less important than being alive," she said. "And you make me feel alive again." Derek cupped her face with both hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheeks. "You saved me," he said simply. "I was drowning and you pulled me out." "We saved each other," Verena corrected. "You gave Thessin someone to trust. You gave me a reason to open my heart again." They sat in the quiet intimacy of the moment, foreheads touching, breathing in sync. Then Verena closed the final distance and kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, two people learning each other. Then it deepened, becoming something more urgent, more necessary. Weeks of growing connection and restrained desire poured into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing harder. Verena smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "Stay tonight," she said. "Not in the guest room. With me." "Are you certain?" Derek asked. "I have never been more certain of anything," she replied. They moved to her room quietly, careful not to wake Thessin. Inside, Verena's space was elegant and simple, soft fabrics in shades of blue and silver, low lighting that created shadows and warmth. They undressed slowly, taking time to learn each other's bodies, tracing scars and curves with gentle reverence. When they came together, it was not just physical desire but something deeper. Two people who had been alone too long, finding comfort and connection in each other's arms. Verena moved with confidence and grace, guiding him, showing him what she needed. Derek responded with careful attention, wanting to give her pleasure as much as take it. Afterward, they lay tangled together, skin against skin, hearts still racing. Verena rested her head on his chest, her hand tracing idle patterns across his ribs. "I did not know I could feel this again," she murmured. "Neither did I," Derek replied, his fingers running through her hair. They talked quietly into the night, sharing pieces of themselves they had kept hidden. Verena spoke about her husband, about the loneliness of raising Thesson alone, about the pressure of maintaining her position on the council. Derek shared memories of the frontier, of the friends he lost, of the crushing weight of feeling useless after leaving the military. As dawn approached, they finally drifted into sleep, still wrapped around each other. When morning light filtered through the windows, Derek woke to find Verena watching him, her expression soft and content. "Good morning," she said quietly. "Good morning," he replied. A small voice came from the doorway. "Are you staying for breakfast?" They both turned to see Thesson standing there, completely unsurprised to find Derek in her mother's bed. She looked pleased more than anything. "Yes," Derek said. "I am staying for breakfast. And lunch. And dinner if you'll have me." "Forever?" Thesson asked hopefully. Derek looked at Verena, who smiled and nodded. "Forever," he confirmed. Thesson grinned and ran off down the hallway. "I'm making toast," she called back. "Do not take too long." Verena laughed, the sound bright and genuine. She kissed Derek once more, slow and deep. "Welcome home," she whispered against his lips. And Derek, for the first time in years, knew exactly what that word meant. He had found his place not in work or purpose, but in the love of two people who saw him for who he truly was and chose him anyway. He had found his home in their arms, in their laughter, in the simple act of being wanted. The broken man who sat alone in a park was gone. In his place was someone healing, someone loved, someone who finally understood that hope was not something you found, but something you built together, one day at a time.